Hello there, I'm Hima Reddy, and if you've been following me for a while, then you know that I use price, time, and momentum to boost my financial markets trading and that of my tribes. Now, I usually do this with charts in front of me or sharing insights while I'm out on an exercise jog, and I'm gonna experiment, we'll see if it sticks, with adding something else to the mix, because there's a side of me that I realize some of you don't know about. And that is my girly side, my love of beauty, beauty products, beauty care. And I don't know what happened. Maybe it's COVID, changed my routine, but I just haven't taken the time to kind of doll myself up like I used to. The thing is, I also absolutely love the markets and learning about them and sharing insights with you. So I've decided that I'll combine the two. I'm going to go through my beauty routine and talk about something important going on in the markets, either something that's important all the time, a lesson that you can take away, or something that's going on right now. And to start with, we're calling this Beauty and the Street. Get it? Beauty and the Beast, Beauty and Wall Street. I know, right? Okay, so what do I have here? Well, I'm in my office in my current home in Austin, and because it's kind of a mess, I've got the screen up. I also have a damp towel because when a lady does makeup and you're not in the restroom, you actually want to make sure you're able to clean your fingertips off if you use different colors and things like that. Besides that, I have my makeup in a little bin in my lap. So usually it would be in a nice kit, but I have it right here so I can access it. And with that, we're going to get started, and we're going to talk about the debt ceiling and this idea that the US has never defaulted on its debt. So what am I talking about? Well, right now, if you're watching this video, May 15th, 2023, okay, as of now, the US has actually defaulted on credit promises in the past. It's just in a way that was very specific most of the time. And I'm going to share a reference article of where I got this from my initial research. And I'm going to also narrate and share with you these 4 times that it happened as I put on my makeup. Okay, so we start with foundation. I've been using this new product, OGEE, and I really like it. So let's go back to the Civil War, okay? So in 1862, there was the situation of the US government trying to actually pay for the war that happened, right? And if you see me scoot off to the side, it's because I actually have a mirror there. So when this was going on, so the US government actually went to folks and said, hey, you know those demand notes we've given you? That's what they're called, demand notes. We are not going to be able to back them the way we thought. We're going to print pure paper money, and they were called greenbacks, okay? That's what came out at the time. And that is something that was falling at a significant discount to gold. So basically, it was a lot more affordable for the government to print the greenbacks than to answer the demand notes, okay? So you can see, this is starting with the Civil War, not exactly in the clear in terms of the US having credit issues or not. I really like this so far, this OG, because it really feels good on the skin. And our skin is like porous and it's soaking stuff up. So I like that. I can feel good about what's sitting on my skin. So now we're going to move on to contouring and talking about the second default that happened. So for contour, we use this dark, like chocolate color. So for this one, I'm just going to read, okay? And I'm going to share the article where I got this. The overt default by the US government on its gold bonds in 1933. Okay, so we're skipping ahead like 70 some odd years there. And what happened here? Again, gold bonds, okay? The United States had in clear and entirely unambiguous terms promised the bondholders to redeem these bonds in gold coin, okay? So you had a gold bond, and when you had the maturity of the bond, you would get gold coins, okay? And with that, they ended up refusing to do so in 1933, offering depreciated paper currency instead. Now, this case went on to the Supreme Court, actually, and on a 5-4 vote was upheld in that it said that the sovereign power of the government to default, if it chooses to, stands. So this really screwed a lot of people over, right? I was just going to run with fingers here. And when this occurred, okay, Justice Harlan Stone wrote, as much as I deplore this refusal to fulfill the solemn promise of bonds of the United States, the government, through exercise of its sovereign power, has rendered itself immune from liability. He continued to say, this demonstrated the classic risk of lending to a sovereign. So in American Default, his highly interesting political history of this event, okay, author Sebastian Edwards concludes that it was an excusable default, but clearly a default. So again, these two that I've shared so far may not be defaults the way we all think of them, but there were definitely times when the US government said, hey, you know the thing that we gave you that we were going to use a certain way? Well, we're not, okay? All right, so we'll move on to blush. This is rose quartz and this OG stuff. So again, just a little subtle contouring, nothing crazy. So here in 1968, so fast forward another 30 years or so, okay? The US government defaulted in 1968 by refusing to honor its explicit promise to redeem its silver certificate paper dollars for silver dollars. The silver certificates stated and still state on their face of language, or in language no one could misunderstand, this certifies that there has been deposited in the Treasury of the United States of America one silver dollar payable to the bearer on demand, end quote, okay? So it would be hard to have a clearer promise than that, as this author wrote, but when an embarrassingly large number of bearers of these certificates demanded the promised silver dollars, the US government simply decided not to pay. So for those who believed certification, which was and imprinted, on the face of the silver certificates to be like something they could hold on to, it was basically like tough luck from the government. Okay, so that's number 3. And for those of you watching this close to current events, think for a moment about what's been going on with some of the regional banks, okay? Like when people start trying to come and get their money that's held in those banks all at once and the bank is not prepared and it's over leveraged, it's a similar situation, right? They cannot deliver on the promise. All right, so I'm not one of these crazy people that does blush everywhere. We're gonna stick with just a little rosy cheek here. And now we'll go with highlight and the 4th in this list of defaults. For highlight, we've got this opal color, which is very clear. And the 4th default, okay? Now we skip ahead just a few years to 1971. The 4th default was in 1971, breaking of the US government's bond commitment to redeem dollars held by foreign governments for gold under the Bretton Woods Agreement. Now, since that commitment was the linchpin of the entire Bretton Woods system, okay, reneging on it was the end of the system. And President Nixon announced this act as temporary. He said it was temporary. And quote, said, I have directed Treasury, okay, Secretary Connolly, to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold, end quote. And the suspension, of course, became permanent, as we know, allowing the unlimited printing of dollars by the Federal Reserve today. Connolly notoriously told this to upset international counterparts, the dollar is our currency, but it's your problem. This was eye-opening to me, guys. And so while we complete the highlight stuff of my makeup, let's talk about this for a moment, okay? I'm not sure about you, but there are a lot of people who kind of like are living out in the world, just regular folks who don't trade, are not interested in trading like that if you ask them what is backing that dollar in your wallet, they still think that there's gold in like Fort Knox backing it. I've asked this of educated folks, and I don't totally blame them for not knowing because we don't learn about money in school and stuff. So the entire removal of the dollar from the gold standard was a default. It was a break of a promise. So I think the essence of this article here, which again, I'm going to put into the related video links here in our tribe portal at the time of me sharing this video, is that while we've never seen the US government to date just go and like say, hey, we can't pay you back on T-bills or T-notes or T-bonds, right? It doesn't mean that they haven't broken their promises or other things in the past. And there's a lot that can be said about what would happen if this actually occurs now, or even if it's saved now, if this occurs in the future. It would affect pretty much every market, pretty much every one, and there would be very few places to kind of like be protected. So as I move on to some eyeshadow, we're just going to do some light eyeshadow today. Okay, it took me a while to find the eyeshadow, but we're just going to do a little light kind of neutral coat here. So the one place that you could go and actually buy an asset that might help you, well, definitely would help you, if the US actually defaulted in the way that we're all sitting here scared it might, is gold or silver. Now, I'm not talking about partaking in shares of an ETF or stocks of a gold company. And that's well and good. That's nothing wrong with that. But I'm talking about the physical ownership of the metals. And there are places where you can get these. Okay, one of them that I happen to use, again, I have no relationship with them. I'm not going to get a cut or anything if you buy with them. I've just worked with them before, is American Gold Exchange. Okay, so you can actually look at the spot prices that they have listed. So it's the prices based on the market trading, but then their adjustments to it for gold and silver in many different forms. Now, the benefit to having gold is you have more value per ounce, right? It's much more expensive than silver, but then it makes it a little more expensive to actually partake in. Silver is like cheaper to get started in, but silver, because it's so much more metal for the same price, it becomes a little bit more cumbersome to store. It's heavy, okay? Like a 1 ounce coin of silver, that's 1/16 of a pound, guys. Like, it's no joke. And I've handled these metals, so I know this. Just keep that in mind if you invest in them directly. All right, so since I'm not going anywhere super fancy right now, I'm just gonna do some basic brow touch-up as we finish up. So just a little shaping, combing of the hairs, if you will. So yeah, it's a very interesting place that we're in. The timelines and dates, some of the important ones to keep in mind are that Janet Yellen, okay, former chair of the Fed, is harping on the fact that by June 1st, we're going to see the US government run out of money to pay those debts if there's not a deal struck. And part of what's attributing to this, from what I've done initial research on, okay, again, I am sitting here and relaying what I'm learning to you, do your own follow-up as well. But part of what's attributed to this is that in April, right, tax month, when the government collected revenue, its income, that because of all the capital losses that so many traders and investors experienced over 2022, right, the market pretty much topped out at the end of 2021 and sailed lower. It recovered a bit, but not that much by the end of the year. Because of that, the revenue that the government collected in April was lower than usual. So think about it. If you have less money come in than usual, but you still have the same debts to pay, you're going to have a crunch timeline. The other matter is that the government in general spends $4 for every $3 it makes. Just think about that for a second, okay? The government, US government, federal government spends $4 for every $3 that it makes. If you or I did that, we'd just go broke, okay? We'd be out on the street. We'd be on somebody's couch, but that's not how it works for the government. So where we are right now, some of the important dates, like I said, the June 1st, and then also tomorrow, Tuesday, May 16th, there is a second meeting of government folks, including President Biden, to try and strike a deal. Now, the economic impact, not just to US stocks and bonds and everything else, but to the entire globe of this happening, would be devastating if it happened, again, in the way that we're all kind of setting up to. The 4 ways I talked about, those are actual facts of history from, again, my initial research. I'm just saying that, guys, because I didn't sit here and go search 10 articles and, search the National Archives and all that stuff, okay? I'm just sharing with you what I'm reading and absorbing. And the government has defaulted before on its debt. It's just that this particular type of debt, right, the treasuries, is looked at as very different, right? A US bond is looked at as like the most secure investment in the world. I mean, I heard that growing up. I heard that all through my college years, my early working career and more. And you probably heard the same. The thing is, it doesn't mean that the government hasn't had issues with money it's borrowed before. All right, with that, my fresh face makeup is almost done. We're just gonna do one final step, which is concealer. Now, I'm going off the OG brand, and here I'm using this brand called Vasanthi, which I really like. It's made by, I believe, Indian women. And so they have a lot of products that are great for people with my skin tone, my type of skin. And I just shook her up a little bit. I'm just gonna put a couple dots right under the eye, okay? Just a tiny bit of product. All these beauty influencers, these young gals, they just slap on the concealer. I'm older, I don't want that much product on my face. And we're just gonna blend it out, and it'll just make me look a little bit more awake and refreshed. And that's that. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Beauty on the Street. Please let me know in the comments below if you found it informative, also entertaining, kind of studying up on what's going on, especially with these somewhat, tenuous and stressful government issues, but like blending that with something fun and light was a different feeling for me, and hopefully that comes through for you. So we will give this another go in the future. Stay tuned, and I'll catch you on the inside.